Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah, no problem. I want to explain what a suggestion, while talking to Ms. Davis and actually Ms. Jones, taking into consideration Ms. Jones' inquiry last week about the mayor and council's budget. What we like to consider is that we will pull the mayor and council's budget today, and what happens is members of council will, it's totally up to you, will go to see the city manager, schedule time between now and Friday to go see the city manager in conjunction with the assistant city manager and the finance director as relates to additions or deductions that you'd like to see in the mayor's and council's budget. On Monday at the public hearing, then I would actually assign those items. Members of council have, this member of council has asked, could we consider this? And what happened at the public hearing, again, I cannot take a vote, but I can take assessment as relates to whether we want to leave those items on the agenda, so when we go to the final budget, we're not going back and forth that day, because I've already made an assessment based on individuals' private meetings with the finance director as relates to whether an item they want to add it or take it out of the budget. The only other part about that I want to make sure we understand is whatever item you take out, if you take out, let's just say for the sake of argument, you take out an area that comes out to $7,000, that means that's $7,000 now available to be spent somewhere else. If you add an item that's $7,000, that means the city manager and the city administrator will have to assess the entire balanced budget and then basically come back and say, members of council, based on the agreement that you want to do this particular action, we can or cannot fund that. I mean, it's just, and I go to be totally transparent and at the same time to be totally fair with every member of council. So do I have anyone that has a problem with that? Okay, so seeing we will hold the mayor and council budget night, at which time I will need you starting immediately sometime tomorrow. You got 4 days to sit, the scheduled time to sit with the city administrator. Yes, sir.
Just one question, Mayor.
Yeah.
We never really resolved the issue of council's community affairs funding. We were waiting on the city attorney to give us a legal opinion about that.
That was actually deemed, that was inappropriate. I mean, we'll leave it that way. That was deemed inappropriate. That was, yeah.
I never heard it.
Yeah, and I apologize, but I actually got a legal opinion on it. That was deemed inappropriate. Yeah. And so, with that being said, we'll now go to the city administrator's budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have been looking forward to today for quite some time. On behalf of the citizens and employees of the City of Fairburn, I'm honored to transmit and have presented to you tonight the City of Fairburn fiscal year 22-23 proposed budget. It's focused on our shared strategic vision. We all had a wonderful retreat earlier this year where we developed a vision, Fairburn Focus 2023, refresh, rebrand, renew. This budget provides an in-depth look at our financial and operational future, as well as highlights the commitments made to the citizens of Fairburn. Tonight's presentations will outline critical investments over approximately $63 million in key areas, tonight's and tomorrow's presentations. Areas such as public safety, parks and recreation, planning and zoning, economic development, and public works focused on ensuring Fairburn remains situated to succeed. This budget strongly reflects your priorities as mayor and council as we developed in that spring planning retreat and delivers on our unified commitment to bring first-class service delivery to every Fairburn resident. Refresh, as you may recall, is about rebuilding, renovating essential Fairburn facilities and initiatives. In that particular area of our vision, you'll find improvements in budget improvements in public safety, facilities, and personnel. Excuse me. Rebrand is proactively managing Fairburn's message, image, communications, and engagement. You'll find investments in communications, ClearGov financial platform, as well as community engagers like our Fall Parade and Festival and Third Friday concert series. And under Renew, remaining focused on renewing strategic Fairburn operational plans and programs. You will see investments in our updated economic development plan, our parks conceptual master plan, leadership training initiatives, and staff training initiatives. Those are just a few of the highlights in the presentations you will see over the coming 2 evenings as each department will come forward and highlight not only their FY '22 accomplishments, but their FY '23 goals and highlights from their budget. With that initial summary, I'm going to give away to our Finance Director, Mr. Peterson David, to summarize our FY '22-23 general fund and a few other highlights before we begin our departmental presentations.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Evening.
We've come before you today to present the proposed balanced fiscal year '23 budget. Tonight, each department head will have the opportunity to provide a brief highlight of their budget request. The proposed FY '23 general fund budget is $23,547,873, roughly a $1.6 million increase from fiscal year '22. The proposed FY '23 other funds budget is $39,470,584, which is about $873,000 increase from FY '22. In summary, the total proposed fiscal year '23 budget is $63,018,457, which equates to
Hold on 1 second, sir. I'm sorry. You have, by law, open meetings, you have to leave that door open. But just asking to turn the radio down, but we have to leave that door open. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
In summary, the total proposed fiscal year '23 budget is $63,018,457, which equates to a $2.4 million increase.
So I wanted to take a moment to highlight some of the changes on our proposed organizational chart for FY '23. And there are a couple of specific changes I wanted to highlight for Mayor and Council. The first being that you will notice on this org chart that Planning and Zoning is a standalone department with a director. Previously, it was a division of Public Works and Administration or Community Development. In this proposed org chart, it becomes a standalone department with a director. We are currently, in fact, we conducted interviews today for the vacant Director of Planning and Zoning position. We'll conduct additional interviews for that position tomorrow. Additionally, you will notice that under Economic Development, we have reinstituted the Main Street program with a specific budget for Main Street programming. Downtown being such a key focus for us in FY '23, we thought that was important. Another important change, facility and building management is now a divisional function under the Assistant City Administrator. We're currently advertising for a facility maintenance manager for that particular division. That will not be a department level position. That is a divisional position now that will report to the Assistant City Administrator and will focus on streamlining existing city facilities, making sure we're doing preventative maintenance, repairs, and things of that nature. You will also notice that under Planning and Zoning as a separate department, we now have a permitting division. Charles Abbott, the agreement you recently approved, will function for all of our plan review and inspections in that area for permitting, as well as our building official for inspections and things of that nature through permitting under Planning and Zoning. Those highlight most of the primary changes in this org chart. Everything else remains consistent across all of our departments. As you can see, utilities, fire, human resources, parks and recreation, police, finance, code enforcement, and division of police, and procurement is a new function as a division under finance. I'll pause right there to see if there are any questions as it relates to the organizational chart as proposed.
Any questions about council, about the org chart? Seeing none, proceed on.
Okay, as we proceed further, I'll give way to Mr. Peterson David to continue the overview. Oh, is it departmental function? Oh, it's my turn. Sorry about that. Before I start on the city administrator's budget, let me provide just a couple of highlights. Thank you, sir. As to how these budget presentations will move forward on this evening. You will notice that each department, beginning with mine, will highlight their budget for the year, including FY '22 highlights, followed by FY '23 goals, and then highlights from the budget. And then after that, we will pause to allow for questions from any council member about any aspect of that department's budget. So with that, allow me to begin. So some of our key highlights from FY '22. In the city administrator's office, as you know, it's a unique function that has management responsibility and oversight for our entire operational functions in the city, including all of our departments. So some of those key highlights from FY22 included implementation of our COVID-19 protocols. With council approval, we updated a telework policy, or created a telework policy, updated our travel policy. We successfully reopened city facilities. As you may recall, at the beginning of the year, we were still having virtual council meetings. We've now moved to in-person council meetings. We've implemented ClearGov budgeting and transparency platform, which is a huge step forward as it relates to transparency around all of our financial issues in Fairburn. We have renovated Fire Station 21, are looking forward to the debut of that renovated station in the very near future. We have a purchasing policy revision that's been approved by council, homestead exemption revision, which is significant. We have a facade grant program, which you heard about at your last council meeting, and we entered into and are in the midst of our classification and compensation study, which will look at compensation across all city departments, all city positions, to make sure we are on market level. Enterprise Fleet Management Program has already begun upgrading the city's fleet at a lower cost than what we were spending previously. We had several vehicles that were out of date and required high maintenance. And we've renovated our HR Human Resources building, have hired our HR director, and they now have an office available for that staff. Moving on to our FY23 goals. We are excited and looking forward to Fire Station 23's construction. An RFP went out last week for architectural services. It is the first significant step in retaining the services required to actually build this station in FY23. So we're excited about that prospect. We're looking forward to purchasing a fire tanker. There are some areas of the city currently, which Chief Robinson can speak to, that do not have significant fire hydrant coverage. Fire tankers allow us to be able to respond to those areas and effectively respond to fire emergencies. We have a new water meter program. We are looking forward to upgrading our water meters. There was a software upgrade several years ago, but the water meters themselves weren't upgraded, and that causes a bit of a disconnect between the two. That's an exciting initiative. And as we discussed extensively in our mayor and council retreat, downtown development, there's funding, as you know, in the ARPA plan, which I'll talk about shortly, that focuses on downtown development. We've got a facade grant program that just was presented at the last council meeting, a small business development program coming forward. We're excited about the prospect of adding to our downtown and revitalizing it. We have a new Main Street department, as I mentioned earlier, with a position as Main Street manager, which we will look to budget and fill this year to focus specifically on downtown development and specifically on Main Street. We have hiring and retention bonuses that we've added to this budget. We've talked in recent meetings about the difficulty and challenges around the current hiring market. And in order to retain good talent, it's important that we not only do our class and compensation study, but that we are able to hire and retain quality employees to serve the citizens of Fairburn. We're looking forward to bringing back our Farmers Market Initiative in FY23. Another significant factor for us is updating our economic development plan. As you may recall, the last economic development plan was in 2016, which is a significantly different time than what we face today. The world has changed a lot in the intervening years since 2016, and we need a current economic development plan. We look forward to doing that in FY23. Along with our Parks Conceptual Master Plan, there is a huge opportunity for us across all areas of the city to develop parks. We're looking forward to having that opportunity move forward. And lastly, we've included leadership and staff training initiatives. I just believe in investing in our Fairburn staff to build their ability to serve residents. And so I think it's important that we invest in the folks who serve the citizens of Fairburn every day, and this budget reflects that priority as well. A brief overview of our personnel services. There are no changes in the city administrator's office for FY23 to personnel. So our existing budget remains the same with the positions that you see detailed here: city administrator, assistant city administrator, executive administrative assistant. So those positions remain the same for FY23 as well. For our purchase and contracted services, professional services comes in at $36,000, which includes basic functions that we do out of professional services, include facilitate our retreats that we had earlier this year. Our economic development consultant comes out of professional services as well. I'm sorry, out of professional services. I'm sorry, let me back up just a minute. Yes, our retreat facilitators, our urban pulse consultant, and then miscellaneous come out of professional services. Our legal fund, as you might imagine, is our city attorney's contract. So we pay for our city attorney services out of that legal fund that you see there. Public relations, that is our communications consultant, which has already paid huge dividends for us. And then some of the standard allotments that you see in our budget is repair and maintenance for vehicles. That is actually the repair and maintenance fund for our enterprise lease contract, so that's all the repair and maintenance charges for that contract that comes out of the city administrator's budget. Liability insurance, telephone, some of the standard things that you see, dues and subscriptions, as well as travel expense. Travel expense covers all of our conferences and things of that nature. Dues and subscriptions covers our GMA membership as a city. It's about $10,000 a year for us to be a member of GMA as a city. All of you are surely aware of all the services we get as being a GMA city. So that's about $10,000 a year. And then there are memberships in National League of Cities, NFBPA for administrators, GCCMA, which is the Georgia County and City Managers Association, GLGPA for our accounting function, several of those memberships as well. Business meetings is miscellaneous business meetings. Other contracted services is the money that we utilize for our employee engagement functions, leadership on location, as well as some photography and videography services. That total comes to $800,855. For supplies, these are all standard office supplies that pretty much remain static. Books and periodicals, small equipment, uniforms, general and miscellaneous supplies, a total of $12,550 there. Then debt service. This again is our enterprise lease payment for the year. We budgeted conservatively. That's $320,000. Our expectation is it will come in less than that when we get to the end of the year, but it's significantly less than what we were spending in purchasing vehicles and vehicle maintenance repair in the previous fiscal years. So in summary, our personnel services come in at $514,000, purchase and contracted $855,000, supplies at $12,550, debt service at $320,000, for our total budget in the city administrator's office of $1,647,964. With that, I'll pause to take any questions you may have in reference to the city administrator's proposed budget.
At this time, will any members of council have questions that's regarding the city administrator's budget? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Yes, and this actually applies to all departments. Would you please confirm and/or state for the record that the personnel cost includes the associated benefits?
Yes, and you will see that. It's a very good question, Mayor Pro Tem. That is consistent throughout all the presentations that you see this evening. The personnel costs include salary and wages, overtime, group insurance, health and reimbursement, all of those ancillary costs that come with it. So it's not just salaries. That's a whole inclusive number that's salary and quote-unquote benefits as well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question just so, this for clarification? You mentioned that each department includes overtime. Is there a percentage of the budget that overtime represents, or?
So each department does not necessarily have overtime. Those
Okay.
are the kind of groups of additional costs. You'll see overtime in some budgets like police, fire, some of those budgets. Every department doesn't have overtime.
Okay.
So for instance, looking at the personnel costs for the city administrator's office, there's no overtime. We don't do any overtime in our office. So that's specific to each department. And typically, you don't see overtime in most of our budgets. It's primarily in public safety. There is some overtime in some of the other
Street
budgets.
department.
In terms, I'd have to look at it overall to see what percentage of our personnel cost it is.
And only reason I'm inquiring about that, we won't get to them today, but what's happened, I noticed in my last administration, I end up having to spend a lot of money overtime in the street department. And so that's why I'm inquiring about that, what department, what's the percentage of overtime, because there came a lot of times in this case where I actually used it, so that's why the inquiry was there. Okay.
You can certainly drill down on that number and get a percentage. What I would tell you is, when we arrived here, the streets department was at 50% staffing. And when you have half the folks who need to get the job done, it requires overtime more frequently. We are nearly completely staffed in streets. There may be one or two positions still open. Our HR department has done a really fabulous job of bringing down our vacancy rate. My expectation, as we get fully staffed, is the need for overtime will lessen. But we will get a percentage for you and let you know what that number is.
Okay, thank you. Does any other member of council have a question about the city administrator's budget? Seeing none, we'll go to the next department.
So next, I'd like to summarize information that we've been over several times, but wanted to present again, and that is our American Rescue Funding Allocation Plan. You see we have, in contract services, we have a $1,171,000 $171,600. That includes the local small business grant program at $350,000, the details of which will be coming forward to council in the next several weeks. The project management services that we have already contracted with Atlas for to help ensure that we bring these projects forward at $271,600. And then our utility assistance program at $550,000. Under buildings and building improvement, we have facility renovations at $3.1 million. We are currently in the process of looking to bid out services for facility assessments. Before we decide exactly what improvements need to be made to these facilities, the very first thing we have to do is have a full comprehensive assessment of the facilities from top to bottom so that we know exactly where we stand. I can tell you now, just based on some preliminary findings, we have several facilities with roof leaks, police department being one of them. Right now, it's probably raining in the police department. So we know that we have some leak issues in several roofs. And so we haven't detailed those yet, but we are certainly looking at those type of infrastructure issues before we look at aesthetics. Initially, we talked about space allocation, making sure we can get the best utilization of our space. Before we can get to that, we have to make sure the building is sound, make sure, you know, all of our systems are in place. And so that's what this initial assessment will do. Then, of course, we have $800,000 set aside in that same category of buildings and building improvements for downtown development. We are, again, assessing what those needs are, looking at exactly how we can best utilize that funding to spur downtown development. That will be a combination of working with our economic development team, our director, Ms. Sylvia Abernathy, our consultant, Mr. Christopher Pike, along with our office, and bringing forward to council specific details on how we think we can best utilize that downtown development funding to spur development, get some of these vacant spaces that are in downtown occupied. We've had some interesting conversations with property owners over the last 30 days. Highlighting our need as a city to move downtown forward. And so more details to come on that particular investment. You see infrastructure at $1.1 million. That includes additional lift stations at $115,000. Some of that work is going to go on before the end of the fiscal year. Fire hydrants, we need to upgrade our fire hydrants. That's $410,000. And then water meter replacements, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Get our system lined up with both software and water meters. That's $595,000. So in total, that comes to $6.191,600. So $191.06. So that is the American Rescue Plan summary of that budget. And with that, I'll pause to see if there are any questions about our ARPA plan for FY23.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
What is our plan for broadband, and where is the source of revenue for that?
So there's not a specific allocation for broadband currently in the ARPA plan. We have $800,000 for downtown development. One of the projects we will take into consideration is creating broadband improvements in the downtown corridor. So as we create that walkable space for downtown, hopefully we can add some broadband capabilities there. There's not a specific allotment for broadband in this particular ARPA plan. We can certainly look at that as we move forward with additional fundings.
Yes, I think we really do. If we don't enhance our internet capability, speed capability, then our work to develop downtown becomes less so, because the businesses will not be as effective because they don't have high-speed internet. And we also had some discussion in the past regarding broadband in the parks. And I'd like to see some consideration for that as well as an initial start. I'd also ask at some point if we can do work with other organizations, if necessary, to do an assessment of the internet divide in our community. That's something that we really do need to enhance capability in the community. And to the extent that the city can do that in partnership with the schools or the county or whomever in order to do that, I think we should do it. If we don't, the city will be further behind, economically speaking, in all regards. Thank you.
Any other question regarding ARPA funding? Okay, seeing none. Next report.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I will be presenting to you the proposed budget for the Finance Department, the city's GO bonds, the water and sewer bond, capital projects, and the hotel motel. Some of the FY22 highlights in the Finance Department include implementation of the automated budget process utilizing ClearGov. Tonight, as we sit before you today, this budget was put together in that software. As some of you may have received an email invitation from the portal to go in there and review the budget and put any notes and comments that you guys would like to see and any changes, that is also available in ClearGov, and you guys have access to that as well. Also, in FY22, we created a procurement manager position, which is already staffed, and she currently is working with all the department heads to get us up to speed and up to date and put out RFP bids. We're currently working on BidNet process. It's a new portal for us to put our RFPs in one location, so that way we get more vendors trying to do services with the city of Fairburn. Also this year, we updated our city's homestead exemption ordinance, which was a concern of most of the council members. So we managed to take care of that, and council approved and voted on the ordinance. We also updated our city's travel policy, which was outdated. We established a new ACH payment for our vendors. In the past, the only means and forms of payment to our vendors was through checks. And now we have the ability to do ACH payments to our vendors so they can get paid faster and within the net 30 days. We also issued a new city purchase card with online receipts and tracking. Council members have not been put in the portal as of yet. We wanted to do the test as department heads to use the credit card to make sure we work out all the bugs and all the kinks. And as soon as that's taken care of, you guys will have access to that portal as well, which will streamline your credit card purchasing process. All your receipts will be able to be uploaded into this software, and we can keep track of it, and we don't have to worry about chasing any loose paper. FY23 goals. The Finance Department has initiated a Fred Pryor training for all of finance staff. This allows us to have training for an entire year. We can do customer service, accounting, AP, any type of training that is available in their programs. We have unlimited access for that for up to a year. So all the Finance Department has signed up for this training, so that way we could continue to educate ourselves to provide the best services that we can to the citizens of Fairburn. Also in FY23, we plan to launch the ClearGov transparency portal for all the citizens. This is where the citizens will be able to go to our website, click on the portal, and see all the expenditures, all the revenues on a monthly basis, and track the city's spending. Implementation of business license software. The business license right now has been transitioned into finance. We plan to get a software where we can track all the businesses within the city and make sure we collect all the revenues and taxes that is owed to the city. Establishment of fund balance and reserve policy. Currently, we're working on putting together a fund balance policy and a reserve policy to bring forward to mayor and council so that we can review and implement for the city of Fairburn. We believe that us being fiscally responsible and making sure that we have reserves for the city will only benefit the council and the city as a whole. Launch our new online portal/software for citizens. We currently are working with multiple vendors to bring forward a new portal where it makes it easier for our citizens to make their utility payments, permitting payments, court payments, all types of payments to the city, where everything can be streamlined and ease of use. And currently working with the procurement manager to update all of our procurement policies so that way we can be up to date. In the Finance Department, we currently have 9 budgeted positions. We are not requesting any positions in FY23. Our current personnel budget is $812,989. In the purchase contract session, the Finance Department is requesting $309,140. $29,500 in professional services for our external CPAs when we're doing our single audit, and payments to Standard & Poor's ratings to measure our credit worthiness and financial strengths. $6,800 in rental of equipment. This is for our copiers and our postage usage. that we do on a daily basis. And we're requesting $59,600 in contractual services for our FY 21-22 audit, property tax mailings, and any technical support that we may need within the department. We are also requesting $184,000 in merchant fees. These fees are associated with each time a citizen swipes a credit card or makes a payment to the city. Supplies. We are requesting $10,500 in supplies for uniforms and daily operations. In summary, the Finance Department is requesting $1,132,629 to cover the cost of personnel, our purchase contractor services, and supplies to perform our daily services. I will now stop for any questions on the Finance Department.
Does anyone have any questions? I'll start with Ms. Davis, then go Mr. Whitmore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mr. David, can you clarify a little bit more on the merchant fees that will be totaling $184,000?
Yes, so the merchant fees is every time a credit card is swiped within our kiosks in City Hall, we get charged a fee by the credit card company. So currently, right now, the city is incurring all those costs. I've been in communication with City Administrator's office to try to see if this is something that we want to continue to absorb or maybe pass on to the citizens. That is something that we would need to discuss with council as well before we decide on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whitmore?
Yes, and actually mine is in keeping with my colleague here, so another class. But when they're swiping their cards, as you know, in most churches nowadays, everything is virtual, and we're swiping cards while we're doing things online. So my question is, the ability of paying via Zelle, which is no cost to the city, those that have that ability to pay via Zelle, or some other avenues out there, have you researched that at all?
Yes, one of the FY '23 goals is the new payment software, the companies that we're working with, to try to find other means for the customers to make payments to us to reduce our costs when they're doing online. Currently, right now, our online payment is not up to par, so we're trying to upgrade the city. When it comes to Zelle, it's a little bit more tricky. The fact that we are a city, we don't want to open up our bank accounts to hackers, so that's not a route that we would want to take.
So you mentioned you're upgrading so that we have other avenues, and what's your timetable of having that usefulness available?
I currently have a meeting scheduled with a company next week after budget is completed, so that way we can go through the details, so I can make the presentation in the city administrator's office.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yes, I just want to make a comment regarding the merchant fees. This body actually had a discussion about that, and if I recall, I thought we had approved not absorbing 100% of the merchant fees. So, and obviously, it was never implemented, but we did have a discussion about it, and we did have an agreement that we would no longer absorb 100%. So if you can review those documents, if they exist, to just refresh on the discussion at that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, well, and given the software, I guess, that you're looking at, that may afford us other opportunities as well. So,
Yes.
thank you.
Ms. Jones, can I just ask you a question? Do you have any idea roughly the time frame that might have happened?
I'll have to go back and look. I'm thinking in my head, I want to say about, so about 3 years ago
Okay,
on this date. So 2 years prior to the previous administration, I'm believing around. But I will double check my
Yeah, I'm
notes
just trying
as
to,
well.
I'm trying to help the clerk's office to figure out how they can
Sure,
locate
if you
that.
can start there, Ms. Ray, but I'll check as well.
We would, that information on whatever the previous discussion would certainly be helpful. As Mr. David just mentioned, we're looking at ways to more efficiently do our online payments, and looking at other municipalities and how those costs are typically passed along and handled. As you can see, it's a $184,000 cost to the city. The world has kind of moved to online shopping. You know, Amazon's one of the largest companies in the world right now. And typically, as part of online payments, there are administrative fees or fees associated with purchasing things online. And that's oftentimes how those fees are mitigated. So we'll certainly look to see whatever the previous discussion was by mayor and council.
Well, it's absorbed, it's really absorbed in the pricing, and those institutions do not absorb those fees. We pay them when we shop online.
Certainly.
And yes, so I think the city needs to do the same.
Go
Yes.
ahead.
Uh,
Go ahead, Ms.
I'm in agreement to reducing that cost. That's a lot of money. You know, I mean, that's a convenience, so convenience costs. So it should be on the consumer.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Okay.
Agreed.
Any other comment for the finance director? Seeing none. Next department.
The next section that we'll be talking about will be our gold bonds. Staff is requesting $1,910,000 for the design of the fire station and to begin construction. $110,000 for the fire station design and $1.8 million for the fire station construction. In our debt services, staff is requesting $804,126. This is for payment for the entire fiscal year for our interest, principal, and fees associated with our bond. In summary, staff is requesting $2,714,126 to cover the design and construction of the fire station and to pay debt services for fiscal year '23. I will stop here for any questions on the gold bonds.
And Mr. City Manager, you can help me understand this. If, and I apologize, it's been so long since I had to deal with it. We're gonna be having discussions shortly after, unfortunately, after the approval of the budget as relates to sewer capacity. Is that, and I just don't know right off, I don't remember, is that gonna have an impact as relates to a bond or where's that
That will
funding?
not have an
Well, if we decide to do a bond, it would be under the water and sewer bonds. So the gold bonds is,
enterprise.
yeah.
So it would be funded under the, if that becomes a need, it would be funded out of the enterprise fund. And if a bond becomes a need, I mean, we're not clear yet that that's,
Right, we're not clear, maybe we gotta have a discussion with,
it would be under the enterprise, which is a separate part of the budget. As you know, enterprise funds are self-sustaining, and so we would look to do that bond out of the enterprise funding and not the general fund.
okay, gotcha. Okay, is it, I'm sorry, any member of the council got a question about,
Yes, so regarding the gold bonds, would this expenditure absorb all the dollars in the gold bond? Is there anything else that the gold bonds were allocated for?
So the gold bonds were allocated for the fire station, for some recreation expenditures. 1 second, I have all this right here. I'll give you the exact information. So these were issued to acquire, construct, and furnish a fire station, certain city recreation facilities, and downtown renewal projects, construction and installation of certain road rebuilding projects and projects of the city as may be determined.
And so have we done all of the other projects?
I know we've done some of the city recreation facilities. We're working on the fire station right now, and then the projects as city may be determined, that is until you guys
That bond
determine.
continues to mature through.
Yes, that bond matures on December 1st, 2031.
So as we move forward, to the best of my knowledge, as we have this discussion, Mayor Pro Tem, the two projects that have been funded thus far have been the Duncan Park improvements, the pool and splash pad. I don't have that exact dollar figure. And the fire station project, which we are about to embark upon. And so as we complete those two projects, that bond will continue to mature through 2032. So the other areas that Mr. David just mentioned, downtown development, road improvements would still be pending. So as that fund continues to mature and collect additional funding, because the amount that you see here is the current amount, but of course, as the GO bond continues to collect funding over that intervening period of time, it will collect additional revenues beyond what we see here for FY '23.
Okay. All right, that's great. And I'm overjoyed that we will finally begin the construction of the fire station.
Yes.
Yes, forever, not to mention when the bonds were initially issued for the fire station. But nonetheless, kudos to you guys for finally moving that forward. I would also ask then, relative to the other potential projects, if we could have some further discussion about what those might be, because, you know, the time value of money, we continue to lose the effectiveness of the dollar the longer we go out. And so we really need to just focus on those remaining projects and getting them in the pipeline sooner rather than later. So I look forward to further discussion regarding that.
Well, certainly. I wanted to pause for just a moment and have Dana Smith, our project manager, talk briefly of an overview of Fire Station 23, what we've done in the last 2 weeks, and what the path forward will look like.
Fantastic.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So,
Good evening.
thank you all for the opportunity for the Atlas to help City of Fairburn with all of your endeavors. We are extremely excited from corporate all the way down to myself. So, regarding Fire Station 23 as an overview, I know that's very important to you all and pressing matter. It's the top of my list. Where we're at now, as Ms. Phillips indicated, we put out the RFP for design services last week. That should be on the street for about 30 days as required by code and law. We will select a design firm from there, allow them to design the station, which has not been fully designed to date. That's why we had to start with an architectural firm, is because we were not immediately ready to break ground because the station needed a full comprehensive design. That timeline, if all goes well, could take 6 to 9 months. Hopefully we'll do it faster than that. Is the goal. We've already put into the contract time is of the essence. After which point that design is complete, that firm will assist in the bidding for the general contractor to construct the fire station, and we will put that on the street via ITB for competitive bid next year, which will probably be around second or third calendar quarter. They will then be awarded, and that contractor will then start to work after we award them the contract to begin the actual construction of the fire station.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Jones, you still got the floor.
No, I just want to say thank you so much for that update. And thank you, Mr. Phillips, for allowing that update to be provided. Again, I'm just overjoyed that we are finally seeing some movement on this fire station because the growth occurring in that area is exponential. So we needed the fire station yesterday, so thank you.
I had one question, just so I understand you guys had concern, I guess not concern, had a long drawn-out discussion as it relates to the procurement method that you're gonna use. Can I ask I'm assuming, listen, just the terminology used, this is a design build?
So
a
this,
design bid build, which one?
it's design bid build, which is, for everybody, it's the more traditional method. Now, in modern times, you can do design build or CM at risk, but we're doing a design bid build where the city will engage an architectural firm first, contract with them, and then we will contract with a general contractor. So both entities will be contracted directly to work for the city. This was also within the thought process of speaking with Mr. Phillips and Chief Robertson, as this be the prototype station for the future stations. So it was very important that this design be very accurate, be nailed down, so to speak, the way that his department and the city needed it to be. So we wanted to make sure we took the proper time to get that design right.
Okay, gotcha.
So one additional adjunct to that, and I'll let Smith kind of speak to this. To maintain our top flight ISO rating, we will need to look at a temporary fire station. As you can tell from that update, the timeline to do this the right way is going to require some time. ISO regularly evaluates our fire staff and status, and so we've talked about a temporary station. I'll let Mr. Smith kind of talk about that.
So yes, he's right again. Mr. Phillips and myself, Chief Robinson again, have talked about a temporary station. We have identified the location for that at the training center. So right now, I'm working with Chief Robertson, Director Martin, Mr. Phillips to try to get that up off the ground as soon as possible, because even in the context of Fire Station 23 in the future, once 23 is erected, there still will be a need for fire services on that side of town. So the temporary fire station will still be necessary. So the goal right now is to erect the temporary fire station before the design is complete on Fire Station 23, or at least by the time that construction starts. In fact, Chief Robinson and myself has a meeting later on this week to go look at some temporary buildings.
And can I ask a question, a follow-up question as it relates to that? As it relates to your ISO rating, will we have an ISO rating this year, Chief? You know when? And so my question is, with these plans listed, in this case for council to consider, what's the impact I mean, I know in this case it's not already built, but what's the impact of ISO seeing that council is actually, could you please come up for a minute? What's